I was comparing the statistics of the pre-experiment survey and the immediately post-experiment survey, and stating that all the students had a decent comfort with the actual material and were able to describe it and visualize it. The experiment group was able to do it in more detail and provide a better visualization. And then what I was going to cover next is all of their comfort levels were higher, but there was a drastic difference between the comfort of the experiment group and the non-experimental group. That statistic is very clearly displayed on my paper. I should have memorized it, but I didn't. So read the paper. Going on from there, what I ended up doing was the post-experiment test. That was a 1-week post that I administered 5 days after. And I've only received 5 out of 9 of the responses to that one. 3 of them were from the experiment group, 2 of them were not. And what showed in that was the comfort levels of the experiment group stayed high, while the comfort levels of one of the non-experimental did drop by 1 point. So those were rankings between 1 and 5, 1 being no comfort with the material at all, 5 being absolute comfort. And that was an interesting note. The statistics are slightly tough to consider valid because we don't have the full class's response. What I did also note is 1 week after, the ability for all the students to define and describe details of a linked list were roughly the same. I would say those that took the experiment or that were part of the experimental group definitely had a better grasp based on their portrayal and writing, and you'll see that in the survey results that are attached. And then they were definitely able to visualize it better. So that was one key component. Those that were part of the experimental group were able to write out their visualizations of the data structure very clearly, at least for me to understand in comparison to their prior descriptions. In conclusion, I would definitely say that the research worked out pretty well, and I definitely would say that it's a sign that virtual reality is effective as a learning tool, but it's not necessarily a replacement for traditional learning methods. It's more of a supplemental tool, especially as the technology is right now. The issues remain to be that content is difficult to produce and it's very costly. So taking all the printed material and traditional materials and making them into something that's readily available for an immersive tech like VR is not something we're ready for yet. I would say that this research was successful to me. I think that it does show that further research needs to be done, and it's a good framework for potential future researchers to use as a skeleton for maybe a fully budgeted project or fully budgeted experiment. That concludes my discussion of the research. I will make most of my source code available if anybody wants to reuse the linked list VR app. And you guys could find me on the class Piazza or email me at the class email.